to our African American Museum of Science and Invention. This year in our diversity focus is the STEM fields. And this is our museum in the Stetson Library. So come on, let's go take a look. Start over here with Archie Alexander. Was a civil engineer and was very well respected. He designed the Tidal Basin Bridge that goes into Washington, D.C., one of the main thoroughfares into Washington, D.C., as well as an airfield and freeways and all those sorts of things. And then as we move on, we have a number of items that are related to railroads. And Elijah McCoy invented a lubricator for train engines. And that's where we get the expression "the real McCoy" from, is because there were knockoffs and people wanted to make sure that they were getting the real McCoy because it worked better. Our next railroad is actually electric and is the basis for our modern subway trains. That was by William Purvis. And Granville T. Woods is a name that's going to come up a number of times. He also designed an electric railway conduit, among other things. And then one of our more famous inventions, patented by an African American, is the traffic light. Okay. Garrett Morgan is another name that comes up from time to time, and so this is only one of his inventions, and he created it for traffic safety, so that as more cars were on the road, we could make sure that people could be safe and they wouldn't be running into each other at intersections. Another step is the bicycle frame, and if you take a look at the patent, this is the bicycle frame that we are accustomed to seeing today for bicycles, and that was patented by Isaac Johnson in 1899. Going back also around that same time period, an attachment for horseshoes in order to keep them safe on icy roads. And we move into motors, the automatic transmission. So Richard Spikes invented in 1933 a way for gear shifts to change automatically. The starter generator was also invented by an African American, Frederick M. Jones, whose name comes up frequently as well. And he also invented the two-cycle gas engine, which is what we use for things like weed whackers and lawnmowers and that kind of thing. Our next section is a number of scientists. And we have Charles Henry Turner was an entomologist, and he was the first scientist to prove that insects can hear. We also have a zoologist, Roger Eleanor Young, was the first African American woman to receive a doctorate in zoology. She studied sea urchins and paramecium. Then we have a couple of NASA engineers. April Erickson Jackson was an aerospace engineer, and she was the first African American woman to receive a PhD in mechanical engineering, and from both Howard University and a PhD in engineering at NASA. Annie Easley is a rocket scientist at NASA, and she developed batteries that were actually the first to be used in hybrid cars. Dr. Ron Millett is a theoretical physicist at the University of Connecticut. A number of years ago, we had him for our assembly via Skype, and fascinating man, he invented time travel. He is a theoretical physicist, so what he theorized is that if you put a neutrino in a ring laser, that you could reverse the spin of the neutrino, which effectively moves it back in time. So he theorized that, and then a number of years after that, someone else actually built the ring laser, and it worked. The neutrino can move back in time because it's inside the ring laser.
So Marty McFly and Dr. Brown didn't create time travel?
No, they didn't. And the thing is that you can't go back before the time machine was invented with this method of time travel. So yeah. This is our medicine and health table, and this is going to be our focus for our virtual assembly this year. We are going to be learning about Angela Ferguson, who is a pediatrician who does a lot with sickle cell research. We're focusing on the Atkinson Memorial Hospital in Coatesville, which is now the Atkinson Memorial Community Services. And Dr. Atkinson started a hospital in Coatesville because he was not hired anywhere else. No one else would take a black doctor, so he went to Coatesville and started his own hospital. Henrietta Lacks was a medical patient, and her cells were saved after she died from cancer and are still being used today for research into AIDS and cancer and a number of other diseases and disorders. Patricia Bath is someone that we have focused on in previous years. She invented an apparatus for removing cataracts. Cataracts can make you blind, and she figured out a way to remove that. Another thing is the first successful heart surgery was performed by Dr. Daniel Hale Williams in 1893. Along with that, Dr. Vivian Thomas, this is really interesting, he was the subject of a movie called Something the Lord Made, and he was hired at a research lab as a janitor, and the doctor in whose lab he was supposed to be working realized that this man was very bright and very dexterous, and so he ended up working with him to develop the stent that goes into the hearts of blue babies. So children that are born with heart defects, he figured out how to repair their hearts, repair the hearts of infants and toddlers, which had never been done before. And he was hired to be a janitor, and he turned out to be becoming a research scientist and very well respected in the field of cardiac surgery. Then we also have, related to that, Dr. Charles Drew did blood plasma research, and he also set up the very first blood bank. He also designed a surgical needle, not the curved needle that we use for suturing, but a needle that is specific to using for IVs during surgery. Okay? And Percy Julian created a preparation of cortisone, which is used to treat arthritis, among other things. And then as we move over here to our foods section, we have Lloyd Hall developed a way to sterilize foods so that they could last longer, so that they wouldn't rot. And Lloyd Hall also invented the manufacture of nitrogen fortified whey concentrate. A lot of people take whey concentrate these days separately, but putting it in foods, it was used to increase the nutritional value. And sugar, Norbert Rillieux improved the sugar making process. All right, so we're moving into household items, and we start off with near the foods table, we have some food related things, such as the rolling pin. John W. Reed invented a rolling pin with handles that stay still. Previous to that, it was a cylinder that was just one thing. We also have the kerosene lantern that was invented by Michael Harney. And of course, Lewis Latimer, we know he worked with Thomas Edison, and what he did in order to help make the light bulb was design the process for manufacturing the carbon filament that goes in electric lights. Sarah Boone patented an improvement on the iron that could fold into the iron so that you could more easily iron sleeves and other small portions of clothing. As we move around to the other side of the table, we have a couple of different important things. Here's our Frederick M. Jones again. He invented refrigeration, and that helped with getting food from across the country, because with refrigerated trucks you can transport food further distances, as well as making our houses cooler. The cabinet bed was invented by Sarah Good. Okay? A lawn sprinkler. We also have a couple of window items, curtain rod supports, and the fastener for the sash on a window. The dustpan, this sort of dustpan was invented by Lloyd P. Ray in 1897. And here's our air conditioning unit, a window unit that was developed by Frederick M. Jones. Then Madam C.J. Walker was an entrepreneur and built up a beauty empire. Then we also have Garrett Morgan invented a decurling comb. So for African American hair, in order to straighten it, this is what they use in order to straighten out your hair. Herbert Charles Smitherman worked with a number of different companies and developed products and improved on products, including improving the ability of toothpaste to clean your teeth. Okay, so this is the communication table. The hand stamp that's used by post offices was developed by William Purvis. We've seen his name before. There are a number of people who did things related to the science that led directly to cell phones. So this is one example of that. William Purvis also invented the fountain pen. Prior to that, you would dip a pen into ink, and it doesn't hold an awful lot of ink before you have to dip it in again. And the fountain pen, though, has a cartridge inside, and so you can write without running out of ink, and it goes together. The cartridge goes like this. Then we also have Benjamin Banneker is a well-known name. He created his own almanac, which for a number of years was not able to be published because he was being discriminated against. But he was a brilliant mathematician and astronomer back in the 1700s. We have a receptacle that led directly to the invention of the safe deposit box. And then as we move into entertainment, the Super Soaker was invented by an African-American, Lonnie G. Johnson, in 1994. And the record player, the repeating phonograph arm, was invented by Joseph Hunter Dickinson. This is a very strange kind of guitar that was patented by Robert Flemings Jr. My husband, who is a guitarist, can't make heads or tails of that, what the weird things are relative to that. So I'm curious to know about that, if I could manage to find one or find someone who knows about it. The golf tee was invented by an African-American, George F. Grant. And as we move around to the other side of the table, we also have an amusement park apparatus, which is basically for roller coaster rails, and the rails that amusement park rides go on was invented by Granville T. Woods, another person who's done a lot of different things. James West has a lot of patents to his name. One of the more significant ones is it's called a toroidal microphone, and what it does is it makes it so that all of the other sounds around in the room don't get picked up. So when you speak directly into this, that's the only thing that gets picked up by the microphone. Jerry Lawson created the cartridge-based video games. Prior to that, the games were installed on a computer, and that's all it would do. And he invented the system where you could put a cartridge into a player and take that cartridge out and put in a different one to play a different game. Then as we move into our industrial area, we have a couple of protective things. We have an eye protector, this sort of goggles kind of, and then a breathing device, which would be the basis for the gas mask. Garrett Morgan invented this to help out firefighters, chemists, people who are in environments where there might be things in the air that they really shouldn't be breathing, and it was used by soldiers as well as a gas mask. And then we have improvements to the elevator by Alexander Miles. And as we come around to the other side with computing, we of course have our NASA scientists could be over here as well, because there are a lot of NASA scientists that are involved in computing. But we also have this is called a delayed cache write-enabled circuit for a dual bus microcomputer system. And this is switching things so that you can change things up, the computer can change things up. He figured out how to make the CPUs talk to the peripherals like printers. And lastly, we have Philip Emeagwali, who was a computer scientist, and he developed the fastest supercomputer in the world, and it was used for weather tracking and global climate change predictions, and that was in 1989.